We've been wanting to make this video for a really, really long time, and truthfully, we even tried before a couple times, but I didn't really feel like either of those landed in the way that I wanted to.
Here's my spreadsheet from my last trip that I went on.
So pumped up. I am ready to go. I am so excited for this video.
What's up?
This is the spreadsheet. Today is the day that we are going to explain how we quit our jobs to travel the world, how we did everything. So that way at the end of this, if you're interested in doing a trip like this, that you'll know exactly what it takes. It's been so important, it's been such a huge part of our happiness that we just had to try to share it in any way that we can. Now, I've quit my job 4 times over the last 10 years to do something like this, usually traveling for a year each time, and I think planning out and the process of making one of these trips happen breaks down into the 3 things. And those 3 things are the big change, and that is the decision to make this huge, massive shift in your life and how you actually get there in the first place. And then deciding on the actual trip that you want to have and not overthinking it. And then third, and this is probably the thing that you're thinking of right now as the most important thing, but I'm telling you right now, this is just a consequence of the other 2 things that we already talked about. It's the money. There's certainly a lot of other videos out there that try to tackle the same topic, and I think the one thing that they don't acknowledge all that well is the inherent risk of doing something like this, which is that not only are you putting a lot of finances at risk, but also you're quitting your job, but also you need to do the hardest thing, which is to tell your friends and family and explain to everyone around you who loves you that you're planning to do something totally different with your life. And I think to not acknowledge that is just not really telling the full story, and I think that's where I want to start. So like probably a lot of you out there, most of my life before I graduated college was just kind of following the game plan of what my parents had laid out for me. And this was a good game plan. It was a safe game plan. I graduated college, got a job, and hey, I made it. But then the realization came around after working my first year or 2 of this job was that I didn't really like it all that much. I was just working through this job and this whole life path that had been laid out for me, but I hadn't really made any big choices about my own life by myself. So days turns into weeks, turned into months, turned into literal years of me having this thought in the back of my head that this wasn't right, that something wasn't right about the life that I was living, and that I needed to do something about it, until finally I came across these people on YouTube who were traveling the world full time, and they had quit their jobs to do it. I just kept thinking, like, how did they do it? How did they actually afford? How did they make time to travel around the world? Just kept searching and searching and searching, trying to figure it out, and I realized that at the end of it, the answer was a lot simpler than I thought. They just made it the #1 priority in their life. I needed to do what these people on YouTube and Facebook were doing. I needed that in my life. I needed to be able to travel. So as I'm thinking about it, I'm realizing that probably these fears, these worries, in between where I was at that point in time, which was in my job, and I knew that the thing that I wanted was to go and travel the world. How I got over that to make the decision to actually travel was just addressing a bunch of fears that I had. And I think that these fears basically broke down into 4 categories, and that was, what will my friends think? What about my job? Will I be lonely while I'm out there traveling? And 4th, and I think the thing that we get asked the most on this channel and in real life by people who are just curious about the same lifestyle that we have is, isn't it dangerous? So let's just start with the first one. Truthfully, I think that the best way for me to explain this is we should probably just talk to my family and see what they thought about me leaving for my trip on my first time 10 years ago. I'll just call up my parents here real quick. Hi guys, hello.
Hello.
Where are you guys?
We are in La Cruces.
Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Dang, traveling
In a
around.
hotel motel.
Holiday Inn.
Oh, I wish it was a holiday.
So it's me to ask you guys, do you remember the first time that I told you that I was going to quit my job to go and take that first round the world trip back in like 2010, 2011? Do you remember how you felt when I tell you where you were, what it was like?
Well, I don't remember exactly where we were, but I do remember shortly after looking at Linda and thinking, what the hell's he doing? But What I was more concerned about was your short career. How were you going to get back on your feet when you got back? You know, because I was worried about what that hole in your resume was going to look like. I think that evidently was unfounded, because you told me, I think once, that when you got back, actually the some of your interviewers actually were more interested in what you did in your off year than they were in what you did in the year before that working. But I was worried about what effect it would have on you long term once you got back, and the possibility of you maybe having to move back into my basement or something.
I had three thoughts. The first one was that I felt really proud of you for like daring to do something that seemed really brave to me. And then the second thing, though, that popped into my mind was, you know, you're a young person traveling all by yourself. Like, people are going to try and rip you off. People are going to, like, steal your wallet. People are going to, you know, I don't know what I thought they were going to do to you. But I was, like, concerned for, like, your actual safety. And then I was also worried, if you're traveling all by yourself, how lonely are you going to be, you know? And that was a huge relief to me when you called me and you told me, like, how your life was going on the road. I was totally worried about absolutely nothing. Absolutely. And I knew how hard you had saved for the trip, so I knew that you had the money to do the trip. And so I thought, well, when you come back, even if you have to crash with us for a couple months while you find a new job, it's going to be fine, because with your skills, it just... with your skills, I really wasn't that worried.
What it really struck me was when we met you on that...
When we went to Europe?
When we went to Europe. And you were much more confident then.
Yeah, and how happy you seem to be when you are facing those little challenges that happen every day when you're traveling that way. That was really kind of your happy spot.
This was great. Okay, I love you guys. Thank you so much.
And in case you need another perspective, let me tell you a little bit about how that went for me. I come from a family of immigrant parents where family was the core for us. Every decision that we made, whether it was what we were eating for dinner, where we were spending our holidays or our vacations, or what college we would go to, all involved decision making with my family. And chances are, if you come from a family like mine, you might not always talk about this, because it's this unspoken rule that family always comes first. And for me, that made it really, really hard to make this decision. I remember looking at Josh and filling out the spreadsheet of all these countries that I wanted to visit that I had never been to, and saying, 2 weeks doesn't feel enough. What if we take a one-year trip instead? And of course he was on board, but it was my family that I was most afraid to tell. I started dropping little hints like, oh, I really want to go visit that country. Have you been here before? This looks amazing. One day I just knew I had to tell them this was our plan, this was my dream. And I was dreading the conversation so much because I was feeling the guilt just rise up. I was expecting to receive guilt, where I already been feeling it, feeling like I was abandoning my friends and my family. But honestly, guys, what I received in return was completely unexpected. I remember my mom asking to see the spreadsheet and the list of countries that we were going to so that she could come out and join us on any of those trips. And the rest of my family were just all so excited for us in a way that I honestly never expected. And coming from someone who felt like any individual action that I made was selfish or not involving the family, hearing my family's support, overwhelming support, was honestly exactly what I needed to feel okay and to feel good about doing this.
Now the next one is, what about my job or my career? And I think that this is the stopping point for most people, because there's so much uncertainty in not only leaving a perfectly good job, but then coming back home and then having to try to get another job, that the process just seems so daunting that I think for a lot of people, and I think for me included for a very long time, this was the thing that I couldn't get past. Will I ever be able to make money again? Will anyone ever hire me again? Will I be totally unemployable? What about this gap in my resume? So either a gap in the resume is just not a big deal, or I'm incredibly lucky, or probably both. But every single time that I quit my job, traveled for a year, and then came back, I made more money at the new job than I did at the job that I left. I don't know if this is normal, it probably isn't. Let's just talk to my friend Graham, who works in recruitment at a big tech company, and he can give us a little bit more nuance and expertise into what it actually means to have a gap in your resume and how to address it the best. So one of the biggest things that I was thinking about when I was leaving my job and saving up a bunch of money to quit and travel around the world was, what is it going to look like on my resume after I quit that I have this like 1 year gap? For you in recruitment at a big tech company, what does that look like, or what does that feel like when you see that on a resume?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, real talk, I don't care that much about gaps. The big picture question that people involved in recruiting are trying to answer is, do they think somebody could do the work required for the role? Anything a year or less, I don't think too hard about it, especially after the pandemic. People lost jobs, people had to take care of family members, people had their own personal lives to take care of. There are a number of people I've talked to who have been on sabbaticals. On the surface, I'm just looking at someone's resume. If I see like a gap of like a year or so, I don't think about it too hard. I say like, hey, does this person write about their work and impact in a way that makes me think they could do the work that they're signing up for in this role?
Yeah.
Beyond a year, I'll be honest, I do begin to think a little bit more, because once someone's been out of the game more than a year, I'm wondering like, okay, how much ramp up time might they require to be effective in their role? Like how long does it take them to get back into the swing of things?
Writing your resume, do you put the thing that you did in that year, even if that thing is like, I took a trip around the world, do you write that on the resume, or would you just leave it as blank and then just say like, 2020 to 2021, I didn't do anything?
Yeah, it depends on what you're comfortable with. But I 100% have seen people who have said, I took 6 months off to go travel. And I look at that, and for me personally, like, I appreciate the candor and the transparency, but it is not required for me to feel confident about saying, yes, I want to talk to somebody. It is something that you should be prepared to talk about at some point, because likely people will bring it up. So have your elevator pitch, if you will, or your 1 to 2 lines.
Okay. Dude, thank you so much. You're the best.
This fear is one of the ones that I struggled with the most before we started our trip, and honestly one that I still think about. I spent 10 years helping patients working in healthcare, and giving it up for a 1 year round the world trip honestly felt really scary and irresponsible and unlike me, because it wasn't that I was miserable at my job. It was actually that I loved my job. And it wasn't that I was ready for a career change. I just wanted a different experience. I felt like I had to take a chance. And I look back and sometimes I do miss it, that career and that part of my life. But I also love this life that we've been granted and this life that we've worked towards as well. Now that we're on the other side, traveling and getting to explore the world, I feel lucky that I look at that with a little bit more hope and optimism rather than one of fear.
So I'm trying not to give too much advice here, but I just wanted to talk really quickly about how to actually correctly quit a job. And the only reason that I'm willing to give this advice is because I've done it these 4 times, and I've had the same conversation over and over of, hey, I'm thinking about leaving my job to go and travel the world for a long period of time. There's some things to think about when it comes to this, and it's a little bit of a different situation, because remember, you're not quitting your job because you hate it. Well, maybe you are, but you don't have to tell them that. You're quitting your job because you want to go do something very, very different with your life, and those 2 conversations are very different. I think most employers appreciate the heads up, especially because you're letting them know that you care about them and that you're going to continue to do good work until the time that you leave, and also it's buying them time to find a replacement and to have you actually train this person up, so that way when you leave it's just a seamless transition for them. And not only that, but most importantly, when you leave, they're going to be like, wow, that was great. Like, this guy took care of everything for me. It didn't affect my business. Nothing bad happened. I'd be happy to hire this person back. And having that safety net, not burning that bridge, is so important to feeling like you're making the right decision, and to feeling like, hey, maybe if this travel thing doesn't end up being for me, or hey, maybe if I just need some more money and I need to come back, that at least you got somebody out there who knows that you do good work. So the next question, will I get lonely? And this was something that I was worrying about a lot before I left on this trip because I was leaving all my friends and family behind. Maybe you're going with someone on this trip and this will kind of alleviate some of this, but if you're going solo, this is a real concern, I think. So the first destination on my trip was New Zealand, and I didn't know anyone there. I didn't really know anything about New Zealand, but I remember the feeling of freedom. Just overwhelming freedom, and also with that fear. How do I make friends? A lot of these things I just kind of fallen out of practice with since high school or college. I went to the hostel, I checked in, and I just like put my bag down in a room and I just sat there. And I just had this sinking feeling of like, what am I doing? What do I do now? Is this what this whole year is gonna be, is just me? So then I just sucked it up, walked down to the hostel bar and just introduced myself to the first group of friendly looking people that I could find, and it was terrifying. But still, they were other travelers, they were nice, they wanted to connect with other people too, and the only way that I found this out was just by saying, hey, hi, I'm Josh from the US, what are you guys doing? Oh, it seems so awkward now even saying it. But after that, we ended up being the best of friends. We ended up hanging out for the next couple days because we had so much in common. They were people that quit their job to travel the world, so did I. There's a lot in common there. And there's also some times in the trip where you want to be alone, where you just want some time to yourself, and that's totally okay too. But just know that you're only going to be as lonely on this trip as you decide to be. So, is it dangerous? Is it dangerous to go out and travel the world? I mean, probably. For me, it doesn't feel any more or less dangerous than, say, going to college or moving to a new town. Because truthfully, in my eyes, after traveling to 50-some countries over the past 10 years, in every single country that I've been to, I've never really felt in danger. But I would say the biggest rule of travel is that 99.9% repeating, basically rounding up everyone, of people out there are just good people going about their daily life, trying to figure out all their own problems and trying to go to work and feed their kids at home and just do normal people stuff. But if you just have a little bit of skepticism, a little bit of wariness of people that come up to you in the world, I think you'll be fine. But of course, I think my opinion here, being a white dude, is not really applicable for everybody out there. For sure. And I think we need to bring in Lisa to talk more fully about this.
Everyone has different comfort levels with this, and I can tell you from my perspective that I spent way more time thinking about the fear of traveling alone or being by myself as a woman than I have actually spent while traveling. But it wasn't until I took my first solo trip to Japan in 2008 that I realized the world isn't as scary as I thought it was. There have been plenty of times on our trip where I've decided to take a hike solo or take a bus solo. I don't think I can count a single moment where I felt actually unsafe. Sure, there are moments where some thoughts will creep in. Maybe I should have memorized the directions a little bit better. Maybe I should have taken a different route. But in the 8 months that we've been traveling, thankfully, I've been safe and I haven't felt actually in danger. But I know that that's not always the case. So, of course, the things that I always think about when I'm going out: tell someone where I'm going and what time I should be expected back. Make sure that my cell phone is working and that I have cell service, just to do a little bit more research than I would otherwise do. The overwhelming feeling has been that the world has surprised me with overwhelming amounts of kindness and warmth.
I really hope that this was helpful for everybody out there.
Yeah, we know that this is just our perspectives, right? And we know that so many of you have either done this before, have questions about it, thoughts or comments. So if any of the above, please definitely leave a comment below. What are they gonna say? Let us know how we can help. This is a really challenging topic to talk about, but something that a lot of you have been asking. How do we even approach this?
Yeah, and like we said at the start of the video, we know that a lot of other people have tried to sort of tackle the same topic, and this is our way of trying to do the same, but we wanted to dig in really, really deep on this and actually answer the question. So you out there, if you want to do something similar like this, or whatever it looks like for you, that you'll have the tools to know that you can. Best case scenario is that we put this video out and it starts a conversation with all of you out there, that you guys start leaving comments below and say, hey, that's cool, except for I had a question about this and a question about that, and we will answer all of the comments that come down below. Well, maybe not all of the reasonable comments that come down below.
And we also don't pretend to be complete experts on this. Everyone has different experiences and life backgrounds, so this is just us. So don't hate us.
This is obviously a big topic, so big that we had to split it up into 3 different videos. The video next week that's coming is how to plan the trip of your dreams, or how to determine what actual kind of trip you want to have and then match that up with the places that you want to go. And then the video that's coming the week after that is going to be talking all about the money. All right, that is it for this video. Please, please, please hit that like button so that way this can be shared so that other people can find it, and leave a comment down below to let us know if this has been helpful and what you'd like to see in the next one. All right, that is it for this one. See you tomorrow.